Hello, my name is Nats. Today I'm going to take you through the Module 5 of the TEFL Universal course. I've enrolled at TEFL Universal. You can find the link in the description box. It's really super cheap and really easy. You have 6 months to complete the course, and it consists of 10 modules, with a quiz at the end of each module, of 15 multiple choice questions, and you need 40% to pass. But even if you're doing another course, I'm certain that these videos will assist you to pass and prepare you for your online teaching adventure. If you're on a similar journey, please subscribe, like and share. 5.1 Grammar. Remember, if you are unsure about any aspect of grammar, take a look at the reliable recommendations sources we listed at the beginning of Module 4. In the teaching grammar arena, it's often said that there are two kinds of teachers: those who worry about teaching grammar, and those who don't. It's as plain and simple as that. Those who worry about teaching grammar probably don't have a full grasp of it. We've observed teachers who have allowed themselves to get into this stressful situation. Some often use delaying tactics such as, "We'll come back to that later," but they seldom do. Or they stand by some unfounded principle that communication is king and grammar is not essential. Oh, really? Or they wing it, and learners get confused. Even from the point of view that it makes for a happier life inside the classroom, knowing and understanding grammar is an excellent skill. More than that, though, is the satisfying feeling that we are helping learners on their language journey and we're doing as best as we can to ensure that they get to their destination. 5.1.1. What do we mean by the term grammar? The term grammar generally refers to the rules and conventions by which words are ordered and changed to form a sentence. Grammar can be prescriptive or descriptive. Prescriptive grammar sets out rules which should be followed if you wish to write correct English. Descriptive grammar describes how language is used in the real world. We must explore prescriptive and descriptive approaches because you need to decide how you will approach the teaching of grammar. Prescriptive grammar sets out rules which should be followed if you wish to write correct English. Sometimes, these rules are based on observation of how educated speakers use the language. At other times, they are based on what the speaker was taught at school many moons ago. For example, my teacher always said you should never start a sentence with and or but. Oh, really? Prescriptive grammar rules are the right rules, according to some experts. Prescriptive rules make a judgment about how and why an utterance is correct or not. Descriptive grammar aims to describe how language is actually used in the real world. Descriptive rules accept the patterns a speaker uses and attempts to account for them. Descriptive rules allow for varieties in a language. A construction is not ignored because some prescriptive grammarian doesn't like it. Descriptive rules describe the way grammar is actually used. Descriptive grammar is a reaction to the way people is accepting of alternative, less nitpicking forms. Descriptive rules also tend to change because language itself is always changing. Have a look at these example sentences. 1. Let's start at the very beginning. Prescriptive rules of grammar would tell us that this is wrong because the beginning is a specific start point, and you can't make it any more specific. However, descriptive rules say that this type of phrase is common in spoken English. So, we'll align with the descriptive side, and we'll keep very in. 2. That's absolutely true. Native speakers also say absolutely true. Again, prescriptive rules of grammar would tell us that this is wrong because you can't have anything stronger than true. Something cannot be more true. However, again, descriptive rules say that this type of phrase is common in spoken English. So, again, we'll align with the descriptive side. 3. Whom do you wish to speak to? Proponents of descriptive rules would say this sentence is fine. Proponents of prescriptive rules would say the sentence is incorrect. We should never end a sentence with a preposition, they say. To satisfy the prescriptive group, we would need to change this to whom do you wish to speak? To us, this seems cumbersome and outdated, so we're happy with the construction, whom do you wish to speak to? But you decide which is best. 4. You must not start a sentence with and or but. How often have we heard this? Thousands of times. Let's have a look at this prescriptive rule a bit further by exploring these sentences. Sentence 1. It's a pretty smart long-term business plan, but do you think those amendments go far enough? Sentence 2. It's a pretty smart long-term business plan. But do you think those amendments go far enough? Sentence 1 fits with the prescriptive rule. Sentence 2 does not and fits with the descriptive approach. There's no doubt in our minds that sentence 2 creates a more powerful effect. The introductory conjunction but gives more weight to the thought expressed in the sentence and is more emphatic. So, again, we'll align with the descriptive side. However, don't get the impression that prescriptive rules are not important. 1. When we adhere to most prescriptive rules, we are adhering to a standard and acceptable form of a language that is accepted and recognized by most speakers of that language. By doing so, this allows us to be understood by the highest possible number of individuals. 2. Most prescriptive rules are critical for those who are learning a foreign language. It just wouldn't work if there were no guidelines for English grammar. 3. Most prescriptive rules allow a speaker of a non-standard dialect to learn and accept the rules of the standard dialect and use them in appropriate social circumstances, if they wish to. Unfortunately, non-standard dialects are still frowned upon and not accepted by many groups and can inhibit a person's progress in society and business. Here are some standard prescriptive rules relating to English. If these didn't exist, there would be lots of confusion. The subject in a sentence must always agree with the verb. We mustn't say, he go to school. In English, capitalize the first letter of a sentence, my computer isn't working. I need to get someone to fix it. Use subject pronouns after the verb be. It was I who phoned you, not it was me who phoned. Always use the definite article the before names of rivers and geographical areas but not before the names of lakes or continents, the Amazon, the Far East. Lake Superior, Europe. Being able to distinguish between the two approaches is crucial since you will need to ensure that your learners are familiar with critical prescriptive grammar rules, while also alerting them to alternative or more informal descriptive uses. Both types of grammar have their supporters and their detractors, which probably suggests that both approaches have their strengths and weaknesses. So, you need to decide how you will approach the teaching of grammar. 5.1.2. Key reasons for teaching grammar. 1. Metalanguage. Grammar is essential because it is the language that makes it possible for us to talk about language called metalanguage. For example, noun, verb, tense, subject. It enables us to talk about how sentences are built, and about the types of words and word groups that make up sentences. This is knowing about grammar. People always seem to associate grammar with errors and correctness. But knowing about grammar also helps us understand what makes sentences and paragraphs clear and engaging and precise. If your learners understand grammar and put it into practice, there are great possibilities that they can construct language that others will understand. The more they know and understand, the better they will communicate and make themselves understood. 2. Comprehensible communication. When we know how to build certain structures and know how and when to use these structures, it enables us to make understandable communication. Without these structures, there may be little comprehension. 3. Acceptability. However, there is often a need for more than just comprehensible, understandable communication. We alluded to this a few moments ago when we said that non-standard dialects are still frowned upon and not accepted by many groups and can inhibit a person's progress in society and business. Any divergence from the usual or accepted standards in a society may hinder integration and even produce a form of prejudice. So, your learners need to be inspired and motivated to strive for more than just comprehensible communication, particularly where potential employers and examiners require grammatical competence. Grammatical competence is the goal. However, remember this. All of the above will depend on the learner's situations and aims. You will need to decide on what elements of grammar are necessary to meet these situations and aims. And remember this. Your role is to teach communicative English and not just teach grammar. There's just no point in going on and on about modal structures per se if learners can't go into a cafe and say, "Can I have a cappuccino, please?" 5.1.3 Myths about teaching grammar. 1. Grammar is boring. Not if you are creative. Not if you avoid repetition of models delivered repetitively and boringly. 2. I don't know enough to teach grammar. You'll know more than they think. Feelings are often based on past experiences of learning grammar traditionally. What better way is there to learn it than by teaching it? The more creative and enthusiastic you become, the more your grammar lessons will become stimulating and enjoyable. 3. I can wing it. If we try to get by winging it, we're doing a disservice to our learners. In the end, will they come out saying I'm not knowing that because the teacher didn't put in the effort? Let's hope winging it, teachers don't continue that habit of winging it when they later become taxi drivers or airline pilots. We wouldn't want to travel with them at the wheel. 5.2 English Language Grammar. 5.2.1 Word Classes 9 Parts of Speech. In grammar, all the words that we use in everyday communication can be classified into specific word groups. The classification is based on the way the word is used grammatically. We call these groups word classes or parts of speech. We'll use the term word class as the term parts of speech is a bit dated. So, for example, lion, which is a noun, a naming word, will be classified under the noun class. It all seems nice and easy. However, some words can belong to more than one class. I am looking forward to Grisham's next book. Noun, a naming word for people, places and things. Thank goodness. It's time to book our holiday. Verb, a doing word. We use a combination of 3 criteria for determining what class a word belongs to. 1. The meaning of the word. 2. The form of the word, its shape and structure. 3. The position of the word in a sentence. This is also called the word's environment. There are 9 word classes in English. Verbs. Nouns. Adjectives. Adverbs. Interjections. Conjunctions. Determiners. Prepositions. Pronouns. Interjections are a small group of words. They are used to express emotions such as pleasure, surprise, shock, and disgust. Many interjections are sounds, rather than actual words, and come at the beginning or at the end of what we say. Linguists continually debate whether this is a class or not. Just in case you teach in a school where 9 classes is the rule, we have included interjections as a class. We shall explore every one of these classes. It is critical that you can identify each class. You know what each class means. You know how to use these individual words. Word classes can be classified into 2 groups. 1. The major, lexical, or open, word class. The 5 major word classes are verbs, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, interjections. They are termed major or lexical because they carry most of the content or meaning of a sentence. They are also called open because new words can still be added to these classes. For example, recent new nouns added to Merriam-Webster's dictionary include crowdfunding, obtaining funding, as for a new enterprise by asking for contributions from a large number of people, especially from the online community. Freegan, an activist who scavenges for free food, as in waste receptacles at stores and restaurants, as a means of reducing consumption of resources. Catfish, a person who sets up a false social networking profile for deceptive purposes. 2. The minor or grammatical or closed word class. The 4 minor word classes are conjunctions, determiners, prepositions, pronouns. They are termed minor or grammatical because they tend to perform grammatical functions such as relating expressions to each other. For example, of relates the hill to brow in brow of the hill. These are also called closed classes as no new words will be added to these groups in the future. They are sometimes referred to as structure words because their function is to contribute to the structure of phrases, clauses and sentences, rather than to add to the meaning content. Note that a phrase is a short, single piece of information. It can be a word, or a small group of words, that forms a meaningful unit within a sentence. A phrase does not consist of a subject and a verb. A clause is a group of words that typically has its own subject and verb. Here are the word classes, with short explanations to whet your appetite. Take your time as you explore these, they're not difficult to grasp. 1. Verb. This is a word or phrase that describes an action, condition or experience. They are often called doing words. Verbs are categorized as doing verbs, for example, read, study, or being or linking verbs, which also encompass feeling, for example, be, feel. Verbs are conjugated. To conjugate is to list the different forms of a verb that show number, person, tense, etc. For example, I eat, he eats. They can be transitive, i.e. taking a direct object, he throws the ball. Note that a direct object is the person or thing that receives the action of a verb. Or they can be intransitive, where there is never an object, I live in Shanghai. Depending on the context, some verbs can be both. 2. Noun. A noun is a word that refers to a person, place, thing, occurrence, quality or substance. It's often called a naming word. Nouns function as a subject, the baby is crying. An object, Juan threw the ball. A complement of a verb, Manuel is a fireman. Remember, a complement is simply a word or group of words, a phrase, added to a sentence to make it complete. Complements usually tell us more about the subject, for example, what it is, how it feels, or what it is like. Here is a complement consisting of a noun phrase. He became a better worker. Nouns also come after prepositions in a prepositional phrase, it is on the table. Nouns can further be categorized as common, city, man, proper, Beijing, Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. Proper nouns name a specific person, place, event, or thing. Proper nouns always begin with a capital letter. Countable, cat, city. Countable nouns have a singular and a plural form, cats, cities. Countable nouns refer to things that can be counted. Uncountable, mud, snow, butter. These do not regularly have a plural form and are called uncountable. Abstract nouns are normally uncountable, for example, happiness, dread, darkness, information, furniture. 3. Adjective. Adjectives are words that refer to qualities of people, things or ideas or which group them into classes. They are often called describing words. Key points. Most adjectives can be linked with a noun and usually come immediately before the noun. For example, a red car, a fast car. These adjectives are said to modify the noun. Remember, a modifier is any word or group of words that changes or adds to the meaning of another word. Most adjectives can follow verbs like to be, to seem, to appear, for example, she seemed happy. In sentences like this, the adjective forms the complement of the sentence and completes the meaning of the sentence subject. Many adjectives are gradable. They can be graded by adding a modifier before or after them, for example, a very fast car. Others are non-gradable, i.e. you cannot add a modifier, for example, they split up after 20 years. They are very divorced, incorrect. Many adjectives have a comparative and superlative form, for example, big, bigger, biggest. Unusual, more unusual, most unusual. When two nouns are placed together, the first one functions as an adjective, as in hair products or learner groups. 4. Adverb. This is a word that describes or gives more information about a verb, adjective, or phrase. Adverbs have several elements. They are often used as adverbials, providing information about, for example, time, manner, and place. Time, soon, already, still. Manner, easily, fast, slowly. Place, here, away, somewhere. They can also be used as modifiers. They can modify verbs. He speaks fast. They can modify adjectives and thus form adjective phrases. You are terribly wrong. That was very easy. They can modify other adverbs to make adverb phrases. He speaks quite fast. Adverbs can also function as transition phrases. Consequently, he had to move to Paris. We all learned that adverbs end in ly, but also remember those other endings such as wise, as in clockwise. Also, all words that end in ly are not adverbs. Take the words lovely and weekly. These are adjectives since the root word form, love and week, are nouns. Adding ly makes them adjectives. 5. Interjection. We use interjections to express spontaneous emotions or reactions such as pleasure, surprise, shock, and disgust. An interjection is an utterance on its own, and it may be just a sound rather than a word. This class includes such things as exclamations great, awesome, ouch, wow, greetings, hi, hey, bye, responses okay, oh, huh, and hesitation fillers 6. Conjunction. This is a word such as an, but, or, while, and although that connects words, phrases, and clauses in a sentence. Conjunctions show a connection between words. The most used conjunctions are and, but, and or. Jen and Chung. Slowly but surely. Fast or slow. But they can also connect longer units. Jen plays football, and Chung plays the guitar. I play the guitar, but I don't play well. We can go now, or we can wait till later. Conjunctions fall into two groups. Coordinating conjunctions. These link items that have equal status, importance grammatically. Uncomfortable but happy. Apple pie or jelly. Their parents arrived, and they called room service. I thought it would snow, but it didn't. The commonest coordinating conjunctions are and, or, but. Subordinating conjunctions. If the two items being linked do not have equal status, importance grammatically, then a subordinating conjunction is used. Most commonly, this happens in complex sentences when a main clause is connected to a subordinate clause. Complex sentence: businesses fail because they can't pay their bills. Businesses fail, main clause. Because, subordinating conjunction. They can't pay their bills. Subordinate clause. Another example: I passed the test although I didn't study. Other subordinating conjunctions include before, since, till, unless, whereas, whether. Note that others consist of two or more words, for example, as if, as soon as long as, in that, in order that, so that, such that. The burglars ran away as soon as they heard the alarm. 7. Determiner. In grammar, this is a word that is used before a noun to show which particular example of the noun we are referring to. These are words that determine the nouns that follow them. For example, articles are determiners: the cat is drinking milk. In this case, the as a determiner tells us that the cat is specific, defined. Possessive adjectives, not to be confused with possessive pronouns, such as my, your, his, are also determiners. Essentially, anything that serves to qualify and quantify a noun is a determiner. Here are some common determiners. A and the. This, that, these, those. Some, any, no. My, our, your, his, her, its, their, many, few, little, much, other, last, next, one, two, three, etc. First, second, third, etc. All, both. Half, third, etc. 8. Preposition. This is a word that is used before a noun phrase, or a pronoun, connecting it to another word. These are typically paired with nouns to form prepositional phrases. For example, the letter is on the table. Prepositions give learners lots of problems, particularly when they are linked to more than one preposition, as in out of and in spite of or in the face of. English has many prepositions, much more than many other languages. Most English prepositions have multiple meanings. Also, many are monosyllabic and are thus difficult to pick up in rapid speech. Also, non-native speakers cannot depend on prepositional knowledge from their first language. For example, the Spanish por could be expressed in English by the prepositions by, for, during and through. You can see the potential for error when learners are attempting to use English prepositions. 9. Pronoun. This is a word that is used instead of a noun or noun phrase, a group of words built upon a single noun. Pronouns replace nouns or noun phrases and, similar to nouns, function as subject, object of a preposition, or complement. Pronouns have different categories. Subject pronouns I, he, we. Object pronouns me, him, us. Demonstrative pronouns this, that, these, those. Possessive pronouns his, hers, ours, theirs. Reflexive pronouns myself, yourself, himself, ourselves. 5.2.2. Verb tenses. There are 12 tenses in English. They are all in the chart below. They're not difficult. Examples of constructions are given in each box. Study these carefully and get to grips with the name of the tense and its construction. So, what is tense? Tense refers to the location of an event or action in time. There is an inflection of the verb in the present and past tenses. Remember from before, inflection is the name given to an additional letter or additional letters added to nouns, verbs and adjectives in their different grammatical forms. For example, cat, cats. Eat, eats. Big, bigger. Christina cycles to the gym. Present tense. Christina cycled to the gym. Past tense. Reference to other times, the future, for instance, can be made in a number of ways, by using the modal auxiliary will, or the semi-auxiliary be going to. Remember from before, for us to use tenses and some passive forms, we need to use auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs are sometimes called helping verbs. The verbs be, do and have are the most common auxiliary verbs. For example, the auxiliary do is needed to ask questions in the present and past simple tenses. The verb be is necessary for the present and past continuous, and all the passive forms. The auxiliary have is used in the present and past perfect tenses. Some tenses need more than one auxiliary, for example, the present perfect continuous. Here is the tense chart. Study it well and keep it by your side. Time to reflect. Go to a comfortable, quiet place to study the tense chart. It's not difficult. It just takes a bit of time if you're a little bit rusty. Take some time out to make a drink or sandwich and reflect on this. You can pause the video now. 12 tenses in modern English. A. There are 3 simple tenses. 1. Present simple, showing whether an action or condition occurs. 2. Past simple, showing whether an action or condition occurred. 3. Future simple, showing whether an action or condition will occur. B. There are 3 perfect tenses. 4. Present perfect, showing whether an action or condition has occurred relative to the present. 5. Past perfect, showing whether an action or condition had occurred relative to the past. 6. Future perfect, showing whether an action or condition will have occurred relative to the future. C. There are 6 continuous, also called progressive tenses. 7. Present continuous, showing whether a continuous action or condition is occurring in the present. 8. Past continuous, showing whether a continuous action or condition was occurring in the past. 9. Future continuous, showing whether a continuous action or condition will be occurring in the future. 10. Present perfect continuous, showing whether a continuous action or condition has been occurring relative to the present. 11. Past perfect continuous, showing whether a continuous action or condition had been occurring relative to the past. 12. Future perfect continuous, showing whether a continuous action or condition will have been occurring relative to the future. Tense 1. Present simple tense, also called the simple present tense. With regular verbs, this tense is formed by using the verb stem, adding s in the third person singular he, she, it. Subject. Verb stem. I. Like. You, singular. Like. He, she, it. Likes. We. Like. You, plural. Like. They. Like. Positive. You like Real Madrid. Question. Do you like Real Madrid? Negative. You do not like Real Madrid. Tense 2. Past simple tense, sometimes called the simple past tense. This tense refers to actions in the past. With regular verbs, it is formed by adding ed to the verb stem, or d if the verb stem already ends in e. Subject. Verb stem, adding ed. Verb stem, adding d. I. Requested. Liked. You, singular. Requested. Liked. He, she, it. Requested. Liked. We. Requested. Liked. You, plural. Requested. Liked. They. Requested. Liked. Positive. You played tennis. Question. Did you play tennis? Negative. You didn't play tennis. Note. In irregular verbs, there is a variety of past tense forms. Become right pointing arrow became, blow right pointing arrow blew, catch right pointing arrow caught. These have to be learned. Note. The past simple can also be formed with the verb be. The past of be, i.e. was and were, is used. Positive. I was annoyed because the show 6 was cancelled at the last moment. Question. Were you annoyed because the show was cancelled at the last moment? Negative. I wasn't annoyed because the show was cancelled at the last moment. Tense 3. Future simple tense, also called the simple future tense, form 1. For this tense, we use will or shall, followed by the verb stem. Subject. Will, shall. Verb stem. All, will, and shall. Close. The door. You, singular. Will. Close. The door. He, she, it. Will. Close. The door. Will, and shall. Close. The door. You, plural. Will. Close. The door. TEYL, will. Close. The door. Note that we often use contractions when using will and shall, for example. All and we shan't. Shall is less common in American English than British English. With will. Positive. You will see her on Sunday. Question. Will you see her on Sunday? Negative. You won't see her on Sunday. With shall. Positive. We shall see her on Sunday. Question. Shall we see her on Sunday? Negative. We shan't see her on Sunday. Tense 3 continued. Future simple tense, also called the simple future tense, form 2. Often called the going to future, this form is a combination of be plus going to plus verb stem. Subject. Am is are. Going to. Verb stem. I am. Going to. Object. You, singular. Are. Going to. Object. He, she, it. Is. S. Going to. Object. We. Are. Going to. Object. You, plural. Are. Going to. Object. They. Are. Going to. Object. Subject. Present tense of the verb have. Past participle of the main verb. I. Have. Washed. The dishes. You, singular. Have. Washed. The dishes. He, she, it. Has. Washed. The dishes. We. Have. Washed. The dishes. You, plural. Have. Washed. The dishes. They. Have. Washed. The dishes. Note that we often use contractions when using have, for example. We've. Positive. You have visited the Great Wall before. Question. Have you visited the Great Wall before? Negative. You have not visited the Great Wall before. Tense 5. Past perfect tense. This tense is formed by had, which is followed by the past participle. Positive. Dad will have cooked dinner by the time we get back. Question. Will Dad have cooked dinner by the time we get back? Negative. Dad won't have cooked dinner by the time we get back. Sometimes, the going to format is used is or plus going to have plus past participle. Positive. Dad is going to have cooked dinner by the time we get back. Question. Is Dad going to have cooked dinner by the time we get back? Negative. Dad is not going to have cooked dinner by the time we get back. Either form can usually be used. Tense 7. Present continuous tense, also called the present progressive tense. This tense is formed by using the present tense of the verb be and the present participle of the main verb. Subject. Is are. Present participle of the main verb. I am drinking Coke. You singular are drinking Coke. He, she, it is drinking Coke. We are drinking Coke. You plural are drinking Coke. They are drinking Coke. Positive. You are watching TV. Question. Are you watching TV? Negative. You are not watching TV. Tense 8. Past continuous tense, also called the past progressive tense. This tense is formed by the words was or were, which are followed by the present participle of the main verb. Subject. Was, were. Present participle of the main verb. I was drinking Coke. You singular were drinking Coke. He, she, it was drinking Coke. We were drinking Coke. You plural were drinking Coke. They were drinking Coke. Positive. You were sleeping when she phoned. Question. Were you sleeping when she phoned? Negative. You were not sleeping when she phoned. Tense 9. Future continuous tense, also called the future progressive tense, form 1. There are two forms. Form 1. This tense is formed by will be followed by the present participle. Subject. Will be. Present participle of the main verb. I will be dining late. You singular will be dining late. He, she, it will be dining late. We will be dining late. You plural will be dining late. They will be dining late. Positive. You'll be cooking dinner when they arrive. Question. Will you be cooking dinner when they arrive? Negative. You won't be cooking dinner when they arrive. Tense 9 continued. Future continuous tense, also called the future progressive tense, form 2. Form 2. This form is made up of is are plus going to be plus present participle. Subject. Is are going to be. Present participle. I am going to be jogging to work. You singular are going to be jogging to work. He, she, it is going to be jogging to work. We are going to be jogging to work. You plural are going to be jogging to work. They are going to be jogging to work. Positive. You are going to be sleeping when she gets home. Question. Are you going to be sleeping when she gets home? Negative. You are not going to be sleeping when she gets home. Remember this, it is possible to use either will be or be going to in order to create the future continuous tense. There's not much difference. Tense 10. Present perfect continuous tense, also called the present perfect progressive tense. This tense is formed by joining the present perfect of the verb be and the present participle of the main verb. Subject. Has, have been. Present participle of the main verb. I have been serving customers for 9 hours. You, singular, have been serving customers for 9 hours. He, she, it has been serving customers for 9 hours. We have been serving customers for 9 hours. You, plural, have been serving customers for 9 hours. They have been serving customers for 9 hours. Positive. You have been standing here for 2 hours. Question. Have you been standing here for 2 hours? Negative. You have not been standing here for 2 hours. Tense 11. Past perfect continuous tense, also called the past perfect progressive tense. This tense is formed by using had been followed by the present participle. Subject. Had been. Present participle of the main verb. I had been waiting for 4 hours. You, singular, had been waiting for 4 hours. He, she, it had been waiting for 4 hours. We had been waiting for 4 hours. You, plural, had been waiting for 4 hours. They had been waiting for 4 hours. Positive. You had been sitting there for more than 2 hours when she finally arrived. Question. Had you been sitting there for more than 2 hours when she finally arrived? Negative. You had not been sitting there for more than 2 hours when she finally arrived. Tense 12. Future perfect continuous tense. Usual form. This tense is formed by using will have been followed by the present participle. Subject. Will have been. Present participle of the main verb. I will have been studying for 3 hours. You, singular, will have been studying for 3 hours. He, she, it will have been studying for 3 hours. We will have been studying for 3 hours. You, plural, will have been studying for 3 hours. They will have been studying for 3 hours. Examples. Can you speak French? He could speak it well if he studied more. May I come in? It might rain tomorrow. He will speak German once he feels confident. Here's what you need to know. 1. Key points. 1. Modals do not change their form at any time. Must remains must however you use it. There is no musted or musting. They have no infinitive or past or present participle. There is no infinitive to can or to must. There are no participles such as canning, musting, canned or musted. Just plain and straightforward must, can, should, etc. At all times. 2. In the verb phrase, a modal verb must always be the first word. After a modal verb, we put the base form of the verb stem, without to. It will be windy. You should look after your money. You could go on Saturday. 3. As with the other auxiliary verbs be, have, and do, modal verbs are of great significance in questions, negatives, and tags. A modal verb is placed before the subject in questions and can have not after it. Positive. Your room should be tidier. Negative. Your room shouldn't be untidy. Question. How should I organize my room? Question tag. You should tidy it each Saturday, shouldn't you? I suppose I should. We do not use do with a modal. Not how do I should organize my work. Incorrect. 4. Modal verbs do not take s in the third person. Examples. She should be here by now. No s. He must try again. No s. 5. Will and would have the written short forms, ll and d. I'll call her now. I wouldn't do that. 6. Many modal verbs cannot be used in the past tenses or the future tenses. Examples. She musted travel there last year. Incorrect. She will can travel with us. Incorrect. 7. We can stress a modal if we want to emphasize its meaning. You really must be quiet. Meaning, it is very necessary. 8. A modal verb does not typically include a tense. It can allude to the present or the future. Present. We must act now. The instructions might be in my tray. Future. We must act soon. The instructions might arrive this afternoon. For the past, we use was able to, had to, etc. Or we use a modal verb plus have. Past. We had to know then. The instructions might have arrived yesterday. But in some contexts, situations, could, would, should and might are past forms of can, will, shall and may. I can't remember the password. Present. I couldn't remember the password. Past. 9. A modal verb can link with the perfect, the continuous, or the passive. Perfect. She may have told you this before. Continuous. They may be waiting at the airport. Passive. We may be shown the proposals later. Perfect plus continuous. You must have been distracted. Perfect plus passive. The evidence must have been destroyed. 10. We cannot use two modals together. Not you will must come soon. Incorrect. 2. Common uses. Below is a table showing the most useful modals and their most common uses. This is not definitive as there are a few other constructions that some people deem to be modals. We've stuck by what we think are the frequent and typical modals used on an everyday basis. The tricky bit with modals is that there are nuances in meaning, so even one native user may choose a different modal from another native speaker. That said, the table below will serve you well. Modal. Example. Typical uses. Can. I can speak 4 languages. They can work out their own travel plans. You can make it if you try. We can't do that. Can I sit down? Can you give me a hand, please? We can try that when we arrive. Ability, possibility, inability, impossibility, asking for permission, request, opportunity. 3. Teaching modals. We've already said that modals are very challenging. One of the best ways to teach modals is to use visual representations of the modals, where it's easier to show the degrees of probability, prediction, etc. This helps to keep the learner's attention when you are teaching this challenging topic. Example. The following context shows the least probability. Chen. Somebody is at the door. Chung. It could be Mum. Now look at the range of probability expressed through different modals. High probability. It must be Fang. It should be Fang. It may be Fang. It could be Fang. Low probability. Here are the past forms of these modals. High probability. It must have been Fang. It should have been Fang. It may have been Fang. It could have been Fang. Low probability. Here is another set of modals that express degrees of prediction. High probability. It will snow in January. It should snow in January. It may snow in January. It could snow in January. Low probability. Finally, here's a visual representation of modals for giving advice. As you can see, a general suggestion escalates into urgency. Urgency. You must discuss it with your tutor. You had better talk to your tutor. You ought to talk to your tutor. You could talk to your tutor. 5.6 Voice, mood and theme. Voice. When we talk about sentences, we also talk about voice. As with an actual voice, we can look at the way a sentence speaks to us. Active and passive voices. If the subject of a sentence is the doer of the action, the verb is said to be in the active voice. The Vikings invaded Britain. Subject. Vikings. What they were doing, invading Britain. If the subject is the victim or the receiver of the action, the verb is said to be in the passive voice. Britain was invaded by the Vikings. Subject. Britain. What was done to Britain? It was invaded. By choosing which of these two forms we use, we can emphasize certain words or contrast one statement with another. We can even use both forms in one sentence. Lou performed well, but the finest performance was given by May. Simply put, the verb changes its form to suit whether we say the subject did something or something did something to the subject. In the end, the meaning is much the same. The point is that the verb needs to change form to match how something is being said or reported. Generally, the active voice is much more direct and more forceful than the passive. Mood. Mood in grammar relates to the form a verb takes to show how it is to be regarded. Verbs change their form to match the mood of a sentence. For example, a verb tells whether we should regard the information as a fact or a question, a command or request, or a wish or uncertainty. Here are examples of verbs changing their form to match the mood of a sentence. She is eating an apple. Statement, fact. Is she eating an apple? Question. Keep quiet. Command. Please keep quiet. Request. I suggest that she take the bus. Wish. I urge that he try to work harder. Uncertainty about him passing his exam. The verbs in the last two examples, bolded and underlined, are correct. They belong to a form called the subjunctive, which is only used in specific constructions after certain verbs. It's all a bit archaic. We needed to put this in as it is an element of mood. Don't concern yourself about it. You won't be talking about the subjunctive in your classrooms apart from the very odd occasion with an advanced adult learner, if ever. Theme. English has a somewhat fixed word order compared with many other languages. Still, some variation is possible. For example, 1. The Girl Guides held the sail despite the rain. 2. The sail was held by the Girl Guides despite the rain. 3. Despite the rain, the Girl Guides held the sail. The question that should come to your mind is the following: what is the difference in these three word orders? Well, the sentences appear to have the same core meaning, so what purpose does word order variation serve? The theme provides the point of departure of the message. That is, the part of the sentence where the emphasis of the message is placed. For example, in 1, the emphasis is on the Girl Guides. In 2, the focus is on the sail. And in 3, the emphasis is on the rain. In other words, the theme provides the framework for interpreting what follows. 5.7 Cohesion. Cohesion is the lexical linking within a written or spoken text or sentence that holds a text together and gives it meaning. It gives it unity. It is linked to the broader concept of coherence. Let's imagine you write a well-constructed paragraph that all makes sense, one sentence leading into the next. Afterwards, generally, you cannot move the sentences around willy-nilly unless you alter them in some way. It's the same, generally, with a completed and well-constructed sentence. You can't often move words around in a sentence willy-nilly either without making some other modifications. This is because of cohesion. 5 fundamental linguistic mechanisms give writing and speech their cohesion or unified structure. 1. Reference. The boy wanted to surprise her. The next day, he refers back to the boy. 2. Ellipsis. Who wrote the letter? B. Bianca. The response Bianca elliptically signals that Bianca wrote the letter. Ellipsis is when we leave out of a word or words that are redundant or able to be understood from contextual clues. 3. Substitution. I aim to run a marathon next year. If I do substitutes to run a marathon. 4. Conjunction. Mike needed to lose some weight. He, therefore, decided to buy an exercise bike. Therefore shows the causal relationship between the first and second sentences. 5. Lexical cohesion. Here through synonymy, he was grateful for the money he had been given. He put the cash in his wallet and drove to the shop. Cash refers back to money. We do this naturally, but it can be very challenging for L2 learners, mainly when they are listening to conversations. 5.8 Register. Remember this from before. Register is a variety of a language or a level of usage, as determined by the degree of formality and choice of lexis, pronunciation, and syntax word order, according to the communicative purpose, social context, and standing of the user. Learners need to use language appropriately and in the right context. Selecting the correct language for the right situation is vital to demonstrate expertise and to save problems arising. Register denotes the choice of formal or informal language we use to match a given situation. These examples should make it clear. 1. Situation. Receptionist introducing to her boss a professor she doesn't know. Dr. Brown. I'd like to introduce you to Professor White. He's the guy who gave the speech at last year's conference. Guy is far too informal. 2. Situation. A husband talking to his wife. Let's go to the 8 p.m. show. I'll accompany you at 7:30 p.m. Accompany is far too formal. 3. Situation. A letter of complaint. Last Tuesday, while shopping in your San Diego store, I was dissed by one of your assistants. Dissed is a slang word and is far too informal for this very formal situation. 5.9 Teaching grammar. Remember, avoid standalone grammar sessions as much as possible. 5.9.1 How to teach grammar. Teaching grammar in the TEFL classroom is no different from teaching other skills, in that you need to consider a range of factors, e.g., age, level of competence, previous grammar experiences in the native language, and the like. It would be a bit rash and silly for anyone to say that a specific grammar structure should always be presented to a particular learner at a specific age. There are several variables at play. So, bearing this in mind, it's best to look at grammar presentations in fairly general age groups. You'll soon know it's time to focus more on grammar when learners start asking you questions, such as, Mr. Thompson, why does this word have an extra letter dogs but the other one hasn't dog? Here is a pretty useful grouping. Very young learners, younger young learners. Young learners, older young learners. Teenagers. Adults. 1. Teaching grammar to younger young learners. Here are some key points relating to teaching grammar to younger young learners, those ranging from, say, 3 years old up to around 7 years old or so. Key points. 1. It just wouldn't be appropriate to teach grammar formally and explicitly under the age of, say, 7 years old. That's a general age guide. However, that doesn't mean you won't be involved in grammar-type activities. 2. You should not use any metalanguage, e.g. the words noun, verb, etc., with your younger young learners. However, there is the possibility that your very young learners may already be aware of some metalanguage, e.g. naming word, noun, and adjective, from their learning in their native first language L1 classes. You need to find out if this is the case. If so, you can use the terms naming word and noun, etc. 3. Your aim is to get them to notice some forms and patterns, and then use them automatically after lots of practice. 4. The grammar you help them to notice must emerge from meaningful contexts, and there should be some meaningful communication that leads to a focus on grammar, e.g. listening to you reading a story or singing a song such as "This is the way we wash our hands." Remember this: never teach grammar in isolation when teaching younger young learners. This would be a recipe for disaster. 2. Teaching grammar to older young learners. Some would say that grammar learning and metalanguage are best left until children are aged about 8 or so. So, this section focuses on these older young learners from around age 8 up to the age of 12 or so. If they are ready for it, you can start to introduce some language analysis and some metalanguage. 1. Key points. 1. Use activities such as rhymes, chats with individual learners and groups, and discussions amongst themselves. Some drilling. Close activities. Questionnaires and surveys. Information gap activities. Presentations. Fun activities and games for motivation and learning. 2. Gradually, for older young learners, it will be possible to introduce some specific activities which focus on separating grammar for study. If the school organization does not prescribe a set curriculum, you need to decide when to do this. You'll know it's time to do it when your older young learners show an active interest in grammar forms such as, why is it that eat becomes ate, but beat doesn't become bait? 3. Ensure you are aware of what grammar they have learned and are learning in their first language, and make yourself aware of what metalanguage they know. Don't overdo this. Sometimes it may be necessary to introduce some metalanguage. 4. Generally, they should be ready for work on some tenses and punctuation, and may be ready for some self-correcting. 5. Also, they should enjoy puzzles and crosswords where they can start to discover some basic grammar rules for themselves, e.g. most nouns are formed in the plural with adding s or s, but other groups make the plural in different ways. 6. They may be ready for creating basic sentences with modals, e.g. pronoun plus verb plus noun, e.g. I like apples, or pronoun plus verb plus adjective plus noun, e.g. I like green apples. Remember this: always think, how can I make this easier for them to grasp? So, for example, you could give all the word classes a different color. To make it more challenging, you could mix up the order of the words and your learners rearrange them to the order of the model. 7. Fun grammar activities are essential for older young learners, so include puzzles where learners are encouraged to discover grammar rules for themselves, e.g., describing differences between two pictures, which can be used to practice prepositions. Also use some of the grammar activities we will explore later, adapting them accordingly. 8. As with all learning, recycling is critical for success. So, ensure you follow this up in later lessons. Learning grammar can be a tricky business for older young learners. It needs much meaningful practice, recycling, and guidance in attending to language form. 3. Teaching grammar to teenagers. The sections above have focused on young learners up to about age 12. Young teenagers up to age 16 to 17 or so will continue their progress in grammar in the school environment, doing more of the type of study we have cited for the older young learners but at a more complex level. Some will continue to progress during that period, and some will reach a plateau in their learning and further progress in grammar may be difficult for them. So, for teenagers, there's not much to add in terms of grammar input. It will be a continuation of the grammar syllabus. Sometimes, this group can be a bit challenging, often because the learners have reached a plateau or because some of them act as if they are a bit too cool for school, and they lack interest in learning grammar. Here's what to do to make your grammar input more attractive for teenagers, particularly with those who are struggling a bit or are a bit disenchanted with grammar. 1. Avoid using metalanguage. Instead, you could say, for example, let's look at another way of describing things you'll be doing tomorrow by using an ing word, i.e., I'm going to. 2. Empathize with them. Tell them you also had struggles with some aspects of grammar when you were younger. But, with a bit of effort, you came through. And look at you now. Remind them, from time to time, how useful grammar is for writing blogs and stories that others will admire, for passing examinations not only in English, for helping them in later years when they may wish to travel or work in an English-speaking country, and so on. 3. Play to their interests as much as possible. Make a massive effort to find out what they really like. It may be watching action movies, or soccer or fashion programs on video. Catch their interest. Then it's easier to introduce some grammatical aspect by stopping the video at one or two specific parts, to ask, for example, why the character made two similar meaning statements but used different words for each statement. 4. Add in a bit of controlled competitiveness. Always do the competitive grammar activity in pairs or groups, so that learners are not alone and may feel embarrassed if they can't find the solution. Put time limits on these types of activities to heighten the tension. The activity shouldn't be complicated in any way. Using the I'm going to example above, it could be, I'm going to give out a sheet to each group. On the worksheet, you'll see the words will and won't several times. Put in I'm going to or I'm not going to in place of will or won't. Be careful. There may be some parts where you can't do this. For example, the text may include the construction will you come back tomorrow. One person in each group must put their hand up when their group has finished the exercise and has checked it all over. Remember, it needs to be correct to get points added for your end of term group prize. If it's not entirely correct, no marks. I'll then pass it to the second group to have a go at getting points for the prize. Are you ready? Remember this, when doing this type of competitive activity, ensure that it's not the same group that wins all the time. You may have to change the groups around from time to time to achieve a better balance, but you wouldn't tell them the reason for this. 5. Inspire them by giving them more autonomy. For example, let them do the dictionary work to find synonyms they can use in a passage. On occasions, ask those who have grasped a concept to help teach those who haven't. Sometimes, let them choose the video they want to watch or the story they want to read, say, from a choice of 3. With lots of effort beforehand, you will have chosen areas of grammar that you want to major on. 6. Make it fun. Use lots of games to keep up their interest, such as snakes and ladders, where they pick up cards you have prepared, and they must decide whether the sentence is correct or not if they are to move up the board. Again, give the groups some autonomy in deciding what's correct or not, but you need to be moving around, monitoring and listening to ensure they've got it right. 4. Teaching grammar to adults. In this section, we focus on the older teenager as a young adult, and adults themselves. Let's call them all adults. Our key focus is not on the grammar items you will cover, because these may very much be the same as we have discussed for older young learners above. So, what is our key focus? It's to ensure you have the best practices and approaches in place for meeting the needs of this group. This adult class will be a diverse group, diverse in educational background, and therefore competency, age, employment history and culture. They will have different goals for attending your English class. Some may be immigrants who need to grasp English quickly if they are to secure a job, and some may be young adults who need this learning to help them achieve entry to university, college, or a vocational program. Some may be adults who need this additional learning for their job, and some may be young or older adults who want to travel, work overseas, or want to learn English as it's good to have. There may be other goals. The challenge is evident. How do you satisfy the grammar needs of a diverse group with diverse goals? There is no easy answer to this. However, the challenge is lessened for you due to one essential characteristic of this group. All the learners in your group have a desire to succeed in learning English. Otherwise, why would they be there? So, they will be motivated. This is a huge plus point. So, what remains to be resolved is deciding on the best practices and approaches to meet their needs. Here's what you need to do. 1. Don't assume adults are competent in grammar. Remember this, do not fall into the trap of thinking that teaching young and older adults will be easier because they will have made more progress in grammar learning. It may be the case sometimes. However, there is no guarantee. Some may not be any more competent in grammar than a young learner. 2. Don't worry about the level. When you are teaching grammar to young and older adults, all the above information about young learners and teenagers is wholly relevant. The key differences will be that there will likely be more explicit sessions on grammar, and you will be helping them to be much more autonomous, identifying and fixing the errors themselves where possible. And with all the work you have completed during this course, you'll be armed and dangerous, ready to handle any query about the present perfect continuous or phrasal verbs. 3. Do a needs analysis. This is imperative. A needs analysis is a process of finding out what needs a learner has. Don't make this into a big formal event. Do it informally. You could do it during your first meeting with the class or an individual where you explain that you need to find out their purpose for attending your class. What you're trying to find out is 1. What are the learner's communicative competence needs at present? While chatting, think about questions such as: how good is her use of English at present? What aspects of her English need to be improved to get her to the target situation? What are her grammar needs? 2. What are the learner's communicative needs in terms of her goal for learning English? Ask directly questions such as: when you go to college next year, what do you have to do in English? When you're at work, what do you have to do in English? Later, analyze, identify and decide what needs to be done, via your teaching, to get the learners to their desired situation in the future. 4. Help them to become grammar detectives. In general, young adults and adults will be able to handle tricky concepts much easier than young learners can. This is a crucial difference between adult and younger learner classes. Because of their adult ability to handle concepts, you can introduce them to some concepts directly, while using the appropriate metalanguage. By doing so, all of this will save time and get them faster to their goals. They will appreciate your plan. Your aim is not just to introduce them to concepts, it is to ensure they can put these into practice. Let's explore 4 concepts that are critical in the grammar classroom. They relate to words and their positions and functions in a sentence. By understanding what these are, your adult learners can quickly become grammar detectives. They will better and faster understand word classes, word order, and the nature of words themselves. If you ensure that they are entirely au fait with the terminology and meaning of these concepts, you'll be off to an excellent start. These concepts are meaning, form, framework, function. If adult learners understand these terms, it will make their grammar learning easier. Not only that, it will involve them in analyzing a sentence and working out by themselves where something may have gone wrong. They will be able to self-correct, to a degree. Adults enjoy and get great benefit from this technique. 1. Meaning. This seems easy. However, it's not that easy. Words can have 2 meanings. 1. A literal meaning, what the word means typically in everyday communication. 2. A meaning for the context it's being used in. Example. The literal and usual meaning of wet is something like this: not dry. Covered in water or another liquid, as in, I slipped on the wet floor. However, in the next sentence, the meaning of wet bears no resemblance to the meaning above. Come on, John, don't be such a tiresome wet. In the UK, wet is a disapproving term for someone who displays weak character and does not express any forceful opinions. He sits on the fence most of the time. So, understanding meaning is crucial. However, it's not just dictionary definitions which help us to know the meaning. Grammar constructions help us to work out meanings by creating mental images in our mind, which help us to work out the meaning. For example, when reading John was a tiresome, and coming to the last part of the sentence, we expect the sentence to finish with a compliment, some explanation as to who he was. In this case, it's a wet. We can then work out that the meaning of wet here is not the not dry wet adjective but a wet noun, some kind of person. We know that it can't be wet with the meaning not dry, as that wouldn't make sense after the word a. So, grammatical constructions help us to work out meaning. Grammar and meaning are intertwined. If the adult learner understands this process, in many cases she will be able to identify the meaning of a word from grammatical analysis. 2. Form. As you know by now, form is what a word looks like, how it is structured, e.g. boy, boys in this sentence. Example. The big boy took the small boy's ball. In our analysis, we can have a good go at working out that boy is a noun, not just because we know its meaning. We know that nearly all nouns add endings in the plural and in possession, so that's a good clue to this being a noun. We can add s to boy and it still makes sense. We know too, for example, that adjectives, adverbs, determiners, etc. don't do this, they don't add plural or possessive endings. There are other ways to confirm this is a noun, but these are not related to form, e.g. it immediately precedes the verb, so it's likely to be a noun or pronoun. Then we can eliminate the pronoun forms, e.g. he, she, it. Yes, it's a noun. Knowing all about form can help us work out what part a word is playing in a sentence. 3. Function. Function is another critical element. Function is what a word does in a sentence. Earlier, you will have taught your learners that nouns are primarily subjects, objects and complements in a sentence. That is, the noun can function as a subject, the object or the complement in a sentence. It can function as other things too. Example. With this bit of knowledge, learners can better analyze a sentence. Have a look at this intriguing sentence. The Uggawaga kicked a Tholanaga. Even if they don't know what an Uggawaga is, they can work out its function from analysis. They know that nouns commonly function as subjects, so this is likely to be a noun. It can't be a pronoun, as there is the before it. Plus, the verb functions is a doing word and the shape of the verb tells us that the ugga-wagga is doing something, i.e., something is not being done to it. So, they can work out that ugga-wagga is functioning as the subject of the sentence, and it is a noun. 4. Setting. In a sentence, words form a setting into which other words can fit. If we recognize the setting, we have a good idea of what type of word can be placed in that setting. Examples. 1. The a-n ate the apple. We know that most nouns can fit after the a-n. So, the word to complete the sentence is likely to be a noun. It's not a pronoun, verb, adjective, etc. We could work out again that the missing word is the subject due to the action word ate and the object word apple. At this stage, we don't know if the noun is singular or plural. If we take away the, then we know it's singular. If we take away the and a, we know it's singular and begins with a vowel. In any case, we know it's a noun that fits this frame. The big boy, the small boy's ball. If we are told that when this is completed it will be a sentence, then it's easy. Into the frame steps a verb. We don't know which verb it is, but we do know it is a verb because it can't be a sentence without a verb. We also know it's a transitive verb because there is an object. Encourage your adult learners to become grammar detectives applying these 4 tests tools to work out word classes, to find what or who is doing what in the sentence, to find out what's wrong, and most of all to enable them to identify and repair errors on their own, where possible. 5. Use games and drills sparingly. Use games and drills sparingly with adults. All of them are there to achieve a goal within a time limit. Although you may see great benefit in these, some of your learners are unlikely to look at it the same way. This could have a negative effect on the class atmosphere. You could use the odd game or two, so long as you carefully explain the end goal. Many adults see drilling as a childish activity. You can often see a disgruntled look on some of the faces. Why let this spoil the excellent atmosphere you have built up? You'll need to play this by ear. If you feel it's right to introduce games and drills now and again, then we're sure it will work out fine. 5.9.2 Making an effective grammar presentation. These practical tips will ensure you make an effective grammar presentation. 1. Elicit frequent learner responses. Remember this, eliciting is a term which describes a range of techniques which enable you to get learners to provide information rather than you giving it to them. 2. Maintain an appropriate but fairly brisk pace. 3. Get their attention. Ensure learners are alert, focusing their attention on you and the material to be learned. 4. Keep your learners' attention. 5. Monitor and, when necessary, correct your learners' comprehension and responses. 6. Ensure there is equal participation of all learners in the process. 7. Ensure understanding via a range of ways, e.g. written and spoken exercises to ensure your learners understand the meaning of the material you are introducing. Also, importantly, ensure learners can make connections with other things they already know. 8. Concept check again before leaving the session, i.e. check understanding via random questions around the class. Learners need to take the material into their short-term memory. This is required for learners to remember it until later in the lesson when you will get them to do further practice. So, the more impact the original presentation has, the better it will be. Again, we repeat, beware of using too much metalanguage unless you are confident they can handle this. You'd need to be sure of this before introducing any metalanguage, particularly with young learners. In any case, don't overburden them with this. Build a fun atmosphere along the way with mime, gestures, funny pictures, cartoons, etc. 5.9.3 Inductive and deductive presentations. A vital element you need to grasp is the difference between inductive and deductive approaches to grammar teaching and learning. A deductive thinker draws out specific facts from a general principle that you have presented. For example, using a deductive approach, you will stand at the front of the class and explain how to form a verb tense and what it means. Your learners will then try out this new knowledge on a set of sample sentences in an exercise. On the other hand, an inductive thinker develops a rule or general principle for himself by looking at a set of examples illustrating that rule or principle. For example, he notices from the words and pictures that he has been given that the letter A goes before some of them and the letters N goes before others. He then identifies which are which and develops the rule for himself, and goes before words beginning with the letters A, E, I, O and U, and A goes before all other letters. He may not know that A, E, I, O, and U are called vowels, which may not be important at his stage of learning. And he may not know there are some exceptions, e.g. an hour, but that can be covered later. He has formed a pretty solid principle on his own. Within an inductive approach, you may provide a text, or examples of sentences that illustrate the rule, and then step back to allow the learners the time and space needed to work out the generalization. In other words, you will not explicitly state the rule. Your role is to facilitate learning. That is why your best route is to provide learners with inductive learning activities as much as possible. However, there are moments when you will need to go the deductive way to explain grammar concepts to the class, particularly with a complex concept such as modals. Remember this: it's better to treat grammar as a skill much like speaking, listening, reading and writing, and integrate it into speaking, listening, reading and writing teaching, rather than teaching grammar as an area of knowledge. Conveying the meaning inductively and deductively. The advantage of an inductive presentation is that learners are not overwhelmed with grammar metalanguage. The other significant advantage is that by discovering language on their own, learners gain learner autonomy. Autonomy gives learners the feeling that they are responsible for their learning. And learner autonomy is a crucial factor in a learner's overall motivation. It's okay if learners don't grasp the language at first. After all, it is the process of asking several learners the same question and eliciting answers that would get learners to eventually perceive the pattern being used and thus discover the language form and meaning on their own. Should there still be any questions, you could then fill in the gaps with more examples or, when necessary, a grammar explanation. In reality, when presenting grammar, you will need to be able to do so both deductively and inductively. You will also have to do so in a clear and concise manner and, of course, this will necessitate your needing to be familiar with the terminology and concepts. It will also require you to be adept at presenting structures in different ways. The reality is that learners won't always be able to infer all the rules, particularly when it comes to achieving accuracy of form. Striking a balance between using an inductive and deductive approach, even within the same presentation, can be very effective. 5.9.4. Different modes of presenting grammar to learners. There is no doubt that a strong knowledge and understanding of fundamental grammatical rules is essential for the mastery of a language. However, it's the way that you teach these rules that paves the road to success by better embedding the learning. Here are some practical ideas you can implement. 1. Present material visually. One effective way to show how a given structure is formed, what it means, and how it is used is to present the material visually, using board drawings, illustrations, pictures, objects or props. You could show them pictures and ask, what differences do you notice in the pictures? To practice, for example, must have, as in he must have fallen. And could have, as in he could have been hit by a falling branch. 2. Use timelines. Another powerful visual is the timeline, which you can draw on the board. Timelines are simple diagrams that can help learners see relationships between verb forms and their time reference. They are a visual representation of the passage of time. Learners can see how the verb works. We have made this simple timeline to explain the simple past tense. Yesterday, I walked to school. There is no definitive format for making a timeline. Just make sure you explain it first of all. You can use an X or any symbol to mark the event. Here's another one to demonstrate the simple future progressive continuous tense. Next year he will be climbing Kilimanjaro. Here we have used a squiggly line to demonstrate the event continuing. The following exercise will give you enormous opportunities for embedding timelines, and it will make grammar learning intriguing and fun. The critical point is that the grammar part is integrated into the vital skills of speaking, reading, writing, listening as much as possible. Exercise timelines. As they get used to these timelines, you could introduce the idea of my timeline, where learners draw up a timeline of notable events in their lives from the past till now. Older learners will quickly come up with a range of notable events. Young learners could ask their parents' caregivers for essential dates in the learner's short lives: when the learner was born, when the learner first walked and talked, when the learner first went to school, etc. And you could add in when the learner did something silly. This last one will create lots of fun later when they read out what they've completed. Then you can change the format. Learner A interviews learner B and draws up a timeline for learner B. Then they switch roles, and after this, they read out the other learner's timeline to the class. You can also give them a list of important historical events that have happened in their country and future events the country hopes to accomplish by some date in the future, and get them to plot them on the timeline. These dates could be mixed up on the list. Keep away from serious, political events such as attempted coups. Alternatively, you could center it on a world event such as space exploration or the Olympic Games or the critical successes in the development of medicine. You could also give the learners a short written text and ask them to read it for comprehension, and then they prepare a timeline based on the main facts in that text. As they progress with the verb timelines, their my timeline can be expanded to marking future events on their personal timeline. For example, when will they be going to the big school, when they hope to accomplish something, when they think they will start working, etc. Remember, ensure the grammar part, relationships between verb forms and their time reference, is integrated into, and reinforced by, the critical skills of speaking, listening, reading and writing. 3. Present material through situations. Let's imagine you are presenting the concept of going to. Draw a face on the board with a name under it. Name her Maria. Put a thought bubble above her. Introduce Maria. Say, this is Maria and she's thinking about something nice. I wonder what it is. Draw an aeroplane. Say, she's thinking of her holiday next week. Next week. Using gestures of forward movement. She's going to fly on an aeroplane. She's going to fly. Repeat this class. She's going to fly. Class repeats. Ask. I wonder where she is going. Draw or show a big picture of the Great Wall in China. Elicit until you get the response. Yes, she's going to visit the Great Wall. Repeat this class. She's going to visit the Great Wall. Class repeats. She's so lucky. Ask. I wonder what she will do there. Next, draw a camera on the board. She's going to take pictures. She's going to take pictures. What is she going to do? Class repeats. Say, I wish I were her. What other things is she going to do? Elicit answers to this. When the correct response comes up, e.g., she's going to walk along the Great Wall, drill this with the whole class and some individuals. Write this response on the board. Follow the same format now with some additional going to questions, then write the correct response on the board. Then check with concept questions, checking understanding, at random. Say, so, tell me, what is Maria going to do next week? Where is she going to visit? You can then recap on the structure, avoiding metalanguage, and move them on to practicing it with different activities, e.g. a gap fill exercise, and then move them on to produce the correct structure, say, by conversing in pairs in a writing activity. By giving several different examples through a situation, or specific context, you help the class to build up a clear idea of what the structure means and how it is used. After giving a few examples, you can simply present the situation and try to get the learners to provide the example. This will verify how well the learners have understood the concept, and this also helps to get the class more involved. 4. Present material through demonstration. Another way of showing meaning is to present the learning material via physical demonstration. Let's use the language item above, going to. You could also demonstrate the concept of going to. You could tell them that you're going to open the door. Going to give a prize in a few minutes to whoever is best behaved. Going to open the window because it's too hot. Going to close the window because it's too cold, and so on. Using the same format above for situations, it will be another successful way for you to get them to grasp the concept. 5.9.5 Drilling. We've mentioned drilling before. Let's explore this further. Drilling means repetition. It involves your learners, either individually or as a group, repeating whatever you say. Drilling is a way for your learners to practice new language, both lexical and grammatical structures, in a controlled setting. As you will tell them what to repeat, learners can focus fully on pronunciation and usage. It can be as simple as repeating a word or repeating entire sentences. Drilling is best used after new language has been introduced and explained. People have different ideas about the value of writing the target language on the board before drilling. On the one hand, it's a way to familiarize the learners with the written form, but on the other hand, it could hinder their ability to remember the structure and may draw some of their attention away from meaning and pronunciation. In drilling exercises, rhythm, intonation, and stress are very important. You can illustrate this through gestures or by overemphasizing certain features. Here are the most common types of drills. Q&A. Drills utilize fairly basic conversation elements to mimic improvised language production. Typically, you will ask a question, and the class responds. The trick is that the target language has already been specified. The learners can continue the drill by asking a question to the next person in line. Substitution drills allow parts of the sentence to be changed and adapted. This provides a more practical and absorbing way of using drilled language. 1. Simple substitution drill. The learners substitute one short item after another in the framework of a single unvarying sentence. You could provide the next item, but it's best to get the learners involved. They can shout out the next item for the drill. For example, where can I buy a magazine? Where can I buy a ticket? Where can I buy a bottle of water? 2. The substitution table. Another widely used drill is the substitution table. The substitution table is a summary of a number of possible substitution drills derived from a single sentence. Where can I buy a bottle of water? Where might he find a light bulb? Where will she get a ticket? Where did they sell drinks? You can do vigorous drills in front of your class with a table like this, concentrating on having the learners repeat the sentences of the drill and getting the learners to give you complete sentences in response to cues that you provide. The transformation drill. This drill requires the learners to produce sentences in response to cues, but this time the cues are whole sentences. The simplest drills of this type are the familiar change this sentence to the negative or change these sentences to the past tense. Drilling prose. It gives learners initial confidence. Choral drills allow learners to have a go at new language without feeling self-conscious. Repetition can aid memory. Drilling serves to highlight the key language items in a lesson. Drilling cons. It can become mindless parroting. If overdone, it can have a childish effect which may not be appropriate for older learners. Repetition is no guarantee that new language items are stored in long-term memory. Drilling has limitations when used in the later stages of a CLT lesson since it downplays contextualized use of the structure. You should keep in mind that not all new language items may need to be, or can be, drilled. 5.9.6 Grammar activities. You must introduce as many communicative and interactive activities as possible when doing grammar practice. By communicative and interactive, we mean activities that tend to be more engaging due to the format of the activity and which promote more open-ended, uncontrolled responses. Communicative and interactive activities consist of reaching an outcome that depends on the learners listening to one another and processing what they hear. In such cases, learners will need to negotiate and repair communication breakdowns and adapt their contributions accordingly. In other words, there is some unpredictability in exercises that are more communicative and interactive. Here are some activities which we've used to liven up our grammar sessions. They can be adapted for different levels. They have served us well, and they will serve you well too. Grammar mimes. Divide your learners into groups or pairs. Give each group or pair a sentence that includes grammar already practiced and underline the words that should be guessed precisely. One of the learners in the group pair A must mime the sentence, and a learner in group pair B must guess what it is, in correct grammatical form. Then roles are reversed. Examples will depend on recent grammar learning, such as the past tense or comparatives, superlatives. I swam yesterday. I lost my watch last week. An aeroplane is bigger than a pencil. Mice have smaller teeth than crocodiles. Get them moving. They are going to practice the simple past of regular or irregular verbs. Form a circle. Say a verb out loud and throw a ball to a learner who has to say its past form. She responds and throws the ball back to you, and you choose another learner. Whenever a learner makes a mistake, he has to leave the circle. The last learner left standing gets a reward sticker or other prize. This activity can be adapted to any grammar point. Celebrity profiles. Contrasting the simple past and present perfect tenses by using biographies. Find out which celebrities or sports stars your learners admire. Then find a short biography or write one yourself summarizing a celebrity's main achievements. Read the biography with your learners and make sure they understand the tense differences. Point out examples that clearly illustrate this, e.g., he starred in his first hit film in 2008. However, he has worked in 5 other films throughout his career. Celebrity photos. Cut out relevant celebrity photos from entertainment or sport magazines. Use these photos to teach comparatives and superlatives. Katie Holmes is taller than Tom Cruise. Or, in the European football arena, Neymar is good, Ronaldo is better, but Messi is the best. Articles. This activity works great with beginners, including young learners. Cut up a list of several words that either take a or an and mix them up. Then divide learners into pairs of groups and get them to put the words into 2 bundles, depending on the article. Once you have checked their bundles, ask them if they can figure out the rule by themselves. For very young learners, you could use pictures instead of words. Nonsense sentences. This works great with beginners and elementary learners. Use nonsense sentences when teaching grammar, to make it fun, e.g. the cat smiled at the giraffe in the dentist's waiting room. Green lions love sparkling bottled water. Also, jumble up the words to see if they can put the sentences together correctly. Words and more words. This activity practices word order and the placing of grammar items correctly in the sentence. Write a short phrase on the board. For example, the giraffe, the learner's task is to expand the phrase by adding not more than 1 word at any one time. Encourage them to give you suggestions, and they can write them into the sentence. For example, the giraffe drank. The giraffe drank water. The thirsty giraffe drank water. The thirsty giraffe drank bottled water, and so on. If the suggestion put forward is incorrect, see if another learner can spot what's wrong. If not, gesture that there may be a mistake. If they cannot correct it, do it yourself as a last resort. Speak as little as possible to encourage the learners to speak, make suggestions and point out any errors. Let the sentence build as long as possible. Note they are involved in listening, speaking, and writing. Fewer and fewer words. An alternative to the activity above is to give your learners a very long sentence and ask them to make it smaller in any way that they can, one word at a time, while still retaining a grammatically correct sentence. Changing the words. Give the learners a short sentence. Their written task is to change one word at a time in that sentence while still retaining a grammatically correct sentence. For example, I like playing in summer. I like playing in Seville. We like playing in Seville. Construct a sentence. Construct a sentence and put each word as on a separate card. Give your groups the cards in jumbled order and ask them to try to write a sentence using all the words. They might construct the one you made, but they could construct other sentences. Any grammatically correct sentence is fine. Or you could ask them to make as many different sentences as they can with the words that they have. Words can be used and reused. This is excellent word order and writing practice. Remember that written exercises like this one are another effective way to get learners to practice grammar. Dialogues. Let's imagine that you have presented the simple past. They have practiced it and are now left in pairs to produce the concept orally. You give clear instructions and then give out a handout and guide them through it. On the handout, there are 7 regular verbs, e.g. answer, argue, close, collect, comb, dream, and watch. Learner A asks Learner B, "What did you do last night?" Learner B answers, "I watched television." B asks A the same question, and A responds using a different verb in the past tense, e.g. I combed my hair. Other pairs are doing the same, responding with verbs on the list. Move around, monitoring and helping, as necessary. Once you are satisfied that a pair have grasped it, you can let them loose to ask the same question, but the response from the partner now includes a new verb in the simple past tense which is not on the list. They are now taking risks with the new structure, which is what you are aiming for. Again, you are walking around, monitoring, and helping, as necessary. Prove it, please. Give your learner groups one or more statements to prove or disprove. The statements can tie in with the topic or the grammar point of the class. Examples. Nobody in this class likes winter. Everyone here loves Taylor Swift. Your learners talk to as many other learners in the class as possible to disprove the statements. Then they give feedback to the class. This statement is not true. There are at least 3 people in this class who don't love Taylor Swift. People who. This is an activity where the aim is to complete grammatically correct sentences and prompt debate. Hand out the following sheet and tell the learners they must complete the sentences with a bit of realism, not just adding on a grammatically correct ending. People who park their cars on the sidewalk pavement. Throw litter on the ground. Talk during a movie at the cinema. Drink and drive. Snore. Remember this, the examples above are fine. But take great care when you choose other, people who, examples. For example, in some cultures, spitting is acceptable behavior. You could cause a bit of a stramash if you don't take cultural considerations into account. Grammar auction. Construct a worksheet with 20 or so sentences using grammar points you have recently taught. Half of the sentences should include a grammatical mistake. Divide the learners into groups. Give each group a set amount of fake money. Keep a pile of money for yourself. Read out a sentence. Auction it off. The learners should aim to buy correct sentences. The groups bid, and you sell to the highest bidder. You then say whether the sentence is correct or not. If it's correct, the team wins the amount which they bid for it. If it is incorrect, the team loses the amount which they bid and pass it to you. Any group may bid again, stating the correct form. Again, if they get it right, pay them. If they get it wrong, they need to pay you their bid amount. If the sentence is correct and no group bids for it, all groups must pay a fine. For each incorrect sentence which any group identifies, ask them to explain why it is incorrect. If no group identifies an incorrect sentence, then explain why it is incorrect. To ensure they remain interested while you are explaining, suggest there may be other sentences like this that may come up later. After you have read out all the sentences, the team with the most money wins. Hold your breath. Prepare some cut-up sentences from the grammar area you've been working on and stick them on the board with blue tack, one mixed-up list on the left and one mixed-up list on the right. Mix the sentence words at random so that the lists have the same sentences, but a different word order. Put the learners into teams, standing behind a line or marker in front of the board. The first learner in each team runs to the board and arranges the words in sentence 1 into a correct sentence. However, they are not allowed to breathe in. To prevent this, the learners must repeat a word over and over, e.g. teacher, ice cream, elephant, China, etc. If they stop saying the word, they must return to their teams. As soon as the first learner finishes, the second person in the team runs to the board to do sentence 2 and so on. The winner is the first team to arrange all their sentences correctly. You'll need to tell them when any completed sentence is incorrect, and hopefully, someone in their group will be able to suggest how it should be. It's noisy but great fun. Well done. Halfway through the course. What you have learned here will help you better understand the key elements of grammar. Hopefully, we will have demonstrated that it's not too difficult. And there's lots more good stuff to come. Time for a little break. Then, come back and have a go at quiz 5. It's not too stretching. Good luck. You can pause the video now. End of Module 5 quiz. You require 40% to pass this quiz. 1. When aiming for the best way to teach grammar, which one of the following pieces of advice should you ignore? 1. Avoid standalone grammar sessions as much as possible. Avoid using metalanguage unless they are aware of this. Aim for an inductive approach as much as possible. Aim for a deductive approach as much as possible. 2. In relation to the main parts of a sentence, which of the following is incorrect? 1. A clause is a group of related words containing a subject and a verb. The only prerequisite for a sentence is a main subject and a main verb. The main verb is always the first verb in a verb phrase. A predicate is a term used to label the part of a sentence or clause which contains a verb and states something about the subject. 3. The 5 major word classes are 1. Nouns, adjectives, verbs, prepositions and adverbs. Nouns, verbs, conjunctions, prepositions and pronouns. Conjunctions, determiners, prepositions, nouns and adverbs. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs and interjections. 4. If you use drilling too much, this may not be appropriate for older learners who may see it as a childish activity. 1. True. False. 5. Which of the following statements about prescriptive and descriptive grammar is correct? 1. There is no difference between prescriptive and descriptive grammar. Descriptive grammar rules are the right rules, according to some experts. Descriptive grammar seeks to describe how language is actually used in the real world. Prescriptive grammar seeks to describe how language is actually used in the real world. 6. With regard to modals, which of the following is correct? 1. Modal verbs take s in the third person. A modal is always the last word in a verb phrase. You cannot use two modals together. Modals change their form, depending upon the situation. 7. The English language has 1. 14 tenses, 10 tenses, 8 tenses, 12 tenses, 8. This tense can be formed by a combination of be plus going to plus verb stem. Which is it? 1. Present continuous tense. Present simple tense. Future perfect tense. Future simple tense. 9. Relinguistic structures for cohesion in writing and speech, which of the following is invalid? 1. Substitution. Register. Reference. Ellipsis. 10. 3 categories of pronouns. Which of the following is invalid? 1. Subject pronouns. Coordinating pronouns. Reflexive pronouns. Object pronouns. 11. Which one of the following pieces of advice is it best to ignore when teaching grammar to adults? 1. Help them to become grammar detectives. Use lots of games and drills. Don't assume adults are competent in grammar. Carry out a needs analysis. 12. This conditional form is used when the result is always true for this type of condition. Which is it? 1. Second conditional. First conditional. Zero conditional. Third conditional. 13. This tense is formed by using the present tense of the verb be and the present participle of the main verb. Which is it? 1. Present perfect continuous tense. Present continuous tense. Present simple tense. Present perfect tense. 14. This type of sentence contains two or more main clauses linked by a connective. Which is it? 1. Compound sentence. Independent sentence. Complex sentence. Simple sentence. 15. Which of the following statements about adverbs is untrue? 1. They can modify adjectives. They can provide information about time, manner, and place. They can describe nouns and pronouns. They can modify verbs. So go for it and try out the quiz. And click for the next video.